Welcome to the Business of Hearing podcast, the #1 marketing and practice growth podcast for high-performing private practice hearing care leaders. It's Friday, and this is my end-of-week roundup of what's top of mind after 7 days of helping some of the world's best private practices to attract high-quality patients, fight the evil forces of manufacturer-owned chains, and be impossible to compete with. My name's Ollie Luke. Pull up a chair, pour yourself a drink, and let's have a chat. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Hearing podcast. And today we're talking about Google. Google is on their arse. And if you are currently relying on Google from an SEO perspective, from a Google ad perspective, I implore you to pay a lot of attention to this episode, because I've said this before, but I'm going to keep reinstating it until we all pay attention, because look, like Google has been like the foundation of the internet, right? Google is like pretty much how everybody references to searching for any form of information on the web. And if a few years ago, somebody even suggested that Google wouldn't be a foundational part of how people use the internet in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, they would have been laughed out the room. They were seen as untouchable. Yet there's a lot going on right now. And really, Google are focusing on 4 big areas that we're seeing that are going to dramatically impact the way that practices like us have been able to win traffic, win attention, win patients through Google, whether through traditional SEO, through Google Ads, through PPC, through SEM, all the things that it's naturally called. And really, I'll back up and give the context to what is going on, because for a long time, Google was at the forefront of everything AI. Like, they were so far ahead of the curve. They were predicted that Google are going to lead this AI revolution. There was a point in 2021 where one of the developers said that the AI they were developing became, I can't remember the exact term, like sentiment. That's not the right term. But like it had emotion and then Google seemed to back off and ended up with this really kind of weird phase. But Google are set to lead the market from an AI perspective. And then ChatGPT rocked up. And they rocked up pretty aggressively and took a product to market very quickly, which then resulted in their search product hitting the market in October 2024. And since then, what's happened is Google, for the first time in a long time, when it comes to owning the internet, owning market share, have been on the back foot. And from reading articles, it seems there's been a lot of internal frenzy at Google, late night board meetings, things that would suggest that they're not in a comfortable phase right now. And as a result, they're kind of counterpunching on the back foot right now to try and wrestle back control of this kind of AI revolution and win back the market share that they have lost, because Google have dropped below 90% market share for the first time since 2015, which doesn't usually happen for groups like Google, who have so much dominance and monopoly on something like search. And as a result, they're rushing to push things out. And maybe rushing is unfair, but they're definitely accelerating based on the timelines that they had. And there's 4 big things that I want to talk about that Google are pushing right now that is majorly either impacting traffic and how patients find you today, or is going to impact the way that patients utilize the internet to find services like yours in the future. And the first ones is AI overviews. So last year, Google introduced something called AI overviews. And essentially the goal was somebody searches something on Google, typically a question, and rather than the user having to do what they've traditionally done for the past 2 decades of then look through the listings, click one of the blue links, go to a website and pull the information. Right now, an AI overview is something that sits at the top of Google. Somebody searches a question and the AI overview will give an answer to the question based on a synthesized answer from sources that it's pulled. So essentially it will read information based on that question and then summarize a nice clean answer at the top. Now, for a period of time, there was a lot of, as I would say in the UK, bollocks. Like, it was a lot of random information that was pulled that was incorrect because it had picked up a random news headline that lacked context, and it was getting laughed at a lot. Recently, they plugged in Gemini, which is kind of their AI model that has made it a lot more accurate. Now, why is this big news for businesses like ours that rely on the likes of Google as the lifeblood of leads and opportunities? Well, less people are reaching websites like ours for the answer. And what we know is, if we look at the 5 stages of awareness of how people naturally first become problem aware, then solution aware, then product aware of looking at the different options to find out who is best for them, and then finally in that final phase of being ready and motivated to move ahead with treatment, most of our success in the past as private practices has been in that middle ground. It's people who are researching, people who are doing their due diligence, people who are looking to be educated before making a decision. That's where we've been able to show up as local educators, as local thought leaders, and build trust and reputation and recognition with those patients, that when they get to a point where they're ready to move ahead, we are key in their mind as somebody that has clearly done this for a long time with great success, achieved outcomes for people like them. Now, Google are replacing the ability for those people to make it through to websites like ours. They are becoming the educators in the middle. Now, this is what I believe one of the biggest factors that has resulted in Q1 being significantly down for new patients appointments across many, many hearing care practices. Like, the big area where we've had a lot of joy in the past as practices has now been replaced by these AI overviews that are causing a lot of conflict, a lot of confusion. This is not just our industry. A company called, I think it's Chegg, recently sued Google for this exact reason, because they're an online business. Their traffic has almost gone in half because they're an information business. They publish information, and right now users are not getting through to their website because the AI overview is pulling the information from the website and then putting it on Google directly. So essentially, impressions are stable because our sources are strong, but the clicks of people who search in to click is majorly on the decline. This is happening in pretty much every service-based industry right now, where some form of education is needed prior to somebody being ready to make a buy-in decision. So that is the first big thing that is majorly impacting what is going on right now with Google. The second big factor of why it's very risky to build your house on Google and rely on old school SEO and Google ads is the market share shift. Now, it's quite subtle right now. ChatGPT search was launched in October for their paying members, essentially. On December 19, they made it public. So anybody in the world, whether you're a paying customer or not of ChatGPT, can now use their search function. And it was predicted that they had 1% market share at that point. A survey in December, it was only like a handful of, like a few thousand people, shared that 8% of the people at that time were using ChatGPT, but there's not been any published information since to say what market share ChatGPT have gone from 0 to a percentage of. So it's very much unknown right now of how much of a grasp they have on the wider people who are using the internet to make research, to use the internet day to day. I think what is quite interesting on this is I may be in an echo chamber, but everybody who I seem to speak to talks to me about ChatGPT. It's not like it's this little niche thing that not many people know about. This is becoming like a mass market everybody seems to know about. And there was a trigger recently when my mum asked me about ChatGPT. Now, my mum can just about use Google. So to be at a point where she's now asking about ChatGPT shows that this is not those little niche conversations that geeks online like me are now using. This is becoming a little more mass market. So how many people are using ChatGPT as an option for their search rather than Google? How much of that market is shifting? It's probably quite small right now. But to go from 0 to even small at the unprecedented level that has, like, this is going to take market share. And there's a clear reason it's going to take market share from my view. It's because it's better. Like, if you're looking for information online, you will have, in my opinion, a much better experience with ChatGPT search than you will with Google. First of all, you're not seeing about 100 adverts before you can find anything organic. It gets to know you and your preferences and gives you the answers how you would like them based on its knowledge of you. It's a much cleaner way to find information in a research way than traditional Google. So that is a big one right now, which is a big risk of how Google are losing market share, and building your house on Google becomes very, very risky. Now, I've got 3 to 4. 3 and 4 are 2 things that have not yet happened, but are in progress right now at the point of recording this conversation. And the first one, and I want to get the right terminology here, is on April 14, Google are changing their policy for their unfair advantage policy. So essentially, they've had this for a period of time, which means that they don't want the big brands to win over the small brands. So the rule was that one business could only buy one ad in any form of search. So if you go online and you search for red dresses, then one company who sells red dresses can only have one ad. They can't have multiple ads because that would be unfair to ensure that the playing field is level, that there's 5 to 6, 7 different ad spaces on a Google search feed, and different businesses have got to have each one. On April 14, Google are changing the policy, and they've tried to position this as a benefit, but from reading into the Google Ads community, it's not that. And that is that the same business now can buy multiple ads. Now, the ads have got to look different, but they can all link through to the same business, which means that really this gives massive competitive advantage to the Goliaths. Like, we are in the market where Apple are buying ads for the term hearing aid. We've got manufacturer-owned chains whose marketing department is bigger than our annual revenues. Like, we have no ability to fight with these big Goliaths that can outspend us in order to acquire a patient. And right now, this shift has caused that now they have a huge competitive advantage. They can basically buy all ads and leave us having to either overspend for ads because they can spend more to acquire a patient, or just accept that we're not going to get in those spaces, because Apple could easily rock up and just buy every single ad space because of the change with this unfair advantage policy. It's pretty ridiculous, and I'm going to assume this is a money grab from Google, given that that they're in a little bit of an interesting position right now. I'm still unsure why they've done it, other than driving more revenue from the big spenders of advertising. That can only be my view. But this is going on right now, which means that cost per click, cost per action, all the stats that you'd naturally focus on if you're driving Google ads, they're just going to increase in our industry. Which means that if you've walked the tightrope over a number of years of we're getting leads through Google ads and they're costing us this, and we can make that work, just know that's going to increase. And if that increases, how much can it increase before that isn't a platform that you can rely on and utilize as a way to drive new leads, new opportunities, and new patients? And then we have the fourth. And this is the biggest thing that is going on right now. That is probably the most dramatic shift to how traditional SEO has ever worked. And that is that Google are currently testing AI mode, which is in their labs right now. So before Google takes something to market, they typically put it in what they call their labs, which is you can sign up to be part of their labs, and essentially you can be a beta tester of anything new that they're working on that they can use for data before being confident to roll it out to the rest of the market. Now, this AI mode, and I encourage you to Google it, go and check it out. It's crazy. It's essentially ChatGPT. If you've used that, it's rather than ask a question now of Google and be given listings or an AI overview, you're having a one-to-one conversation where it is providing you answers in the same way that ChatGPT does. It's not giving you links to websites, it's giving you answers. It's a dramatic shift. And it means that, well, what's the future of SEO look like? Big question mark. I'm seeing it being labeled in different ways now, because you're not really optimizing for search engine, you're optimizing for kind of search everywhere, or this generative piece. It's a very interesting state of affairs right now in terms of what is going on. But AI mode, I'm going to assume this will be rolled out at a point, whether it's 2026, 2027, maybe sooner, depending on the battle that's going on now between OpenAI with ChatGPT and Google. But it's going to change the way that people use the internet forever. Like, this is the biggest shift that has happened in decades. Like, since Google became a prominent player for search, this is the biggest shift of how people will use the internet to find information. So if you're relying on Google from an SEO perspective or a Google Ads perspective, and you've built your house on that, then my encouragement to you is quickly diversify and remove the reliance on a platform that could shift beneath your feet very, very quickly. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that just ensure, is your website even being read from an AI perspective? Because optimizing for Google is one thing and trying to manipulate the system to get number one for a certain keyword. But the way that AI, and whether that's ChatGPT or whether what we're seeing with Google right now, the way that will read and observe your website and pull content to make recommendations is drastically different. I'm not going to give you the recipe of exactly how to do it, because that's what we do with our Inner Circle members and deploy. And that is that is the recipe for Big Mac sauce. It's very protected right now. But this is where you need to be giving focus. And then beyond that, like, what is the old school stuff? How are you growing recognition, reputation, and the things that matter to have more people know you in the community without having to find you on Google? Like, these are the things where the game of marketing is drastically shifting. But final thing here, if you're reliant on Google, please diversify and get this right, because this is coming fast. We're seeing the changes that are having an impact on how people are utilizing the internet. This is only accelerating right now and getting more and more traction. So I highly encourage you to pay special attention to this. This isn't a case of this could happen. This is a case of this is happening. And even from the little things we're seeing right now, it's hurting and damaging what even works from an online marketing perspective in 2023. So getting this right now and getting ahead of it is so key. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but hey, I could give you all the fluff right and make you feel good and everything's fine. But I think you're owed the truth of what's going on, and that's probably the reason that you're here. So sweet dreams, sleep tight. The craziness of the market isn't fun, but knowing what's going on at least puts you in control of making the decisions to be ahead of it rather than being swept up and behind it. But I'll be back again next week with another episode where I promise to focus on something a little more lighthearted and fun. Speak to you then. And there we have it. Another episode has come to an end, and I have a quick favour to ask. If you have found this helpful, then who do you know who should listen to this podcast? I strongly believe a rising tide lifts all boats, and right now, private practice needs to stick together to fight these big, gormless groups and these manufacturer-owned Goliaths that are looking to take market share from us. Consider who should be listening, pass on the word about the Business of Hearing podcast, and I'll see you again next week.